Thank you also for letting me speak on a topic that is dear to my heart and something I'm very passionate about, which is the goal and the vision that our Honorable Prime Minister has set in front of our country, which is to make India a technology super hub. He, of course, phrases it differently. He refers to India's decade. He's also, as is known by all of us, very clear in terms of his goals and expectations. He's also spelt it out as a $1 trillion digital economy goal, for which we are currently working on and engaged in. Before I launch into what we are doing and where we see the digital economy go and where we see the digital opportunity space travel, let me give you what I believe is a context and a backstory to the Indian digital economy in general and India's technology capabilities in particular. I think you will agree that India has been in the tech space for some years now, some decades. Most of what the digital economy was for several years and several decades was what we refer to as the ITES space. India was at various times described as the back office to the world, the service solutions providers to the world's enterprises and governments. And so that was a story for several decades, and indeed in 2014, as we entered into the era of New India and governance of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, that was really what the digital economy was about. In 2015, in a program not very dissimilar to this, the Prime Minister launched what we all now know as Digital India. And I was part of the audience then, and I had the occasion recently to talk to him as a minister on a similar program, and I said, in that audience, when I heard him speak then in 2015, I too listened to him with, of course, rapt attention, but with a healthy dose of cynicism and skepticism, not even cynicism, but skepticism. Because he outlined a vision in 2015, which may be worth remembering today as we talk about 22-23 and then look forward. He said in 2015 that his objectives of Digital India were threefold. First, he wanted to use technology in a way transforming the lives of Indian citizens, and the age-old narrative of a dysfunctional governance and dysfunctional democracy that India had been known for several decades by the outside world. So that was one. He wanted certainly for technology to be used in government to transform people's lives. The second he laid out in 2015 was that he wanted the economy and digital economic opportunities to expand. He wanted the digital economy to expand, and from there, opportunities for young Indians to be created for their entrepreneurship, for their startups. And the third, which certainly rang close to my own experiences as an entrepreneur, was that he wanted India to be no longer a consumer of technologies alone, but also to be a producer of technologies in the future, to be not just doing software and back office work, but to really design, architect solutions, platforms, devices, products for the coming years of technology. So these were broadly what he set out were goals in 2015. Like I said, I was in the audience and I said, it hasn't happened for so many years. It's certainly not going to happen now. But in 2022, July, I had an occasion when we were celebrating the 6th anniversary of the Digital India. And I was, of course, by then a minister, and I sat next to him and I said in my speech then that if you report card those three goals today and see how far we have traveled, then the fact that India has become a preeminent nation in the use of technology for its people, for its governance, for its economy, becomes starkly and sharply clear. In the first goal, for example, for decades India was known as a country where great people lived, smart people lived, a lot of smart people lived, big population, but governments that never functioned for its people, and that age-old quote from a then Prime Minister that says 100 rupees leaves Delhi, 15 rupees reaches beneficiaries, and the 85 rupees was the cost of governance. That, in a sense, described India for several decades, was turned on its head by use of technology, the building of the India stack, and today when 100 rupees leaves, and I have been as a minister party to many events in remote parts of India where 100 rupees that is sent from Delhi, 100 rupees reaches the beneficiary's account responsively, without leakage, without corruption, without any mediation. And that, more than anything else, describes the power of technology that has transformed the age-old narrative of Indian democracy and Indian governance. Look at the issue of opportunities. In 2010, in Parliament, I remember I was an MP then, I raised this issue how 10 groups in India had cornered 98% of the Indian banking system's net worth. And while there were many smart people in India, most opportunities, you hear about stories of Satya Nadella or Sundar Pichai, opportunities and stardom and success really came only for youngsters without any famous last name or any great connection. If they left India, went abroad. And in 22, if you look report card that particular fact, you find today 90,000 startups, 102 unicorns, no famous last names. Nobody is connected with a famous grandfather anyway. They've all built their franchises, built their enterprises, built their brands, raised capital, and made successes on their own. That is again a transformation possible because of technology and digital India. And third is this whole narrative about we should just blandly take technology from the West, be a consumer. I certainly experienced that as a telecom entrepreneur where every piece that I incorporated into my early networks, GSM networks, came from a vendor in Europe, vendor in the US. And perhaps the only thing that we used locally were the little cabins that we then designed and made here and the screwdrivers that used to unscrew the cabinets of the transceivers or the base stations. To today, us having startups that are doing work in 5G, creating pieces of the 5G network that are architected here, designed here, semiconductors, devices, products, software as a service platforms, internet platforms that are scalable, that are delivering services and products to the world. So I think even in that narrative, we have made tremendous progress, and it's certainly clear to the world at large and to us in particular that the future of technology may not be led by India or led by any one country, but certainly India will be amongst the pack of nations that will shape the future of technology, shape the future of products, devices, and platforms. Omar bin Sultan Al Ulama, who's I can safely refer to him as a friend of mine, who's the digital minister of the UAE, recently said, and I quote, "The future of technology will have the Indian fingerprint everywhere on and everything digital." I didn't say this. I didn't even write the quote for him. He said it. Pat Gelsinger, who used to be my old boss at Intel, he's now the CEO of Intel, and he's a legend on his own in the semiconductor space. In the middle of 2022 said, "I'm deeply optimistic about the coming decade for India, and I see a huge role for India in the technology space." Michael Spence, the Nobel laureate, and he's an economist, he says the global economy is undergoing a regime change today, and India is the outstanding performer now. And I can go on about quotes because it's safer to use a quote of a foreigner, because certainly me saying my belief about the future of India's decade, or indeed the Prime Minister on August 15, 2021, describing the India decade as a decade full of technology opportunities, and that decade of technology opportunities will be built by our young Indians, sometimes doesn't cut it enough or isn't important enough for Indian media, so which is why I have to trot out the observers of the Indian economy and their observations about the Indian economy to in a sense, reinforce our vision about the future digital economy. Why is digital in today's post-COVID world, and I think you all understand the tremendous role that the investments in Digital India, the India Stack played during COVID, and I will not go down that road. I think that case has been made, placed in front of the Indian people, and has been understood and recognized. So I won't stress too much about that. But certainly it's worth having a discussion about why post-COVID, in this changed geopolitical world, where supply chains of all things digital, services and products are undergoing these deep tectonic transformations, why digital technology and India's place in that is so important. In the post-COVID world, and without pretending to be a foreign affairs Mandarin on the subject, I certainly will make the point that geopolitics, economy, trade, and security are all intersecting, and technology is at the intersection of this. And there is a famous quote, almost prescient quote by our National Security Advisor from, I think, 2016 or 15, when he said that the future battlefields will be dominated by those who have either economic power or technology power, economic power and technology power. And if it is a case of having to choose between the two, the battlefield will be dominated by, and I don't mean battlefield as in battlefield with, guns and arms, but battlefield as in the economic battlefield, will be dominated by those who are strong in technology capabilities. And that thought, that vision is true today. And it is at that intersection that technology lies. And our Prime Minister has laid out a goal of $1 trillion digital economy by 2026. And like I said, we started with our opening balance was the IT as business and the businesses. We have over the last 5 years built a nation where 80 crore Indians, 800 million Indians are online. And by 25, that number will be 120 crore, 1.2 billion Indians online, making India the largest connected country in the world, and certainly the largest presence on the global internet is the Indian internet. And this has happened over the last 8-9 years. Our vision going forward, our goals going forward, like I said, hinges around the $1 trillion digital economy mark. We're unwaveringly laser focused on that goal. And that goal will be met, like I said, ITES continues to grow, and that will continue to grow as the digitization of the world is even further accelerating post-COVID. The internet is the other great opportunity for India and Indian startups. With the new Digital Data Protection Bill and the National Data Governance Framework Policy, the data economy, what we call the Internet Plus economy, and AI will become another big area for us. And AI, I have referred to, and we view this as a kinetic enabler of the digital economy. I think what ChatGPT has recently shown, and how ChatGPT can take a long-lost, discarded search engine like Bing and suddenly make it competitive and relevant with the dominant force of the Google search engine, tells you the power of AI. We are focused also on the whole compute side. as automobiles siliconize, as mobility is becoming all pervasive, and compute and cloudification, cloudification is driving compute, we will shortly be launching an India Open Compute Initiative, where the devices and products for automobiles and the standards for automobile mobility and computes will be another focus for our startups. High performance computing, quantum computing, the blockchain, these are all areas that we are building capabilities on. Now, having said that, I want to just clarify and explain to you what we mean by building capabilities. Building capabilities certainly does not mean that in some ministry there will be a few bureaucrats who will sit down there and spearhead this. The ecosystem model that the Honorable Prime Minister has successfully shown us, and I will explain the classic example of that, is an example where the government is the enabler, startups and the Indian academic institutions form a network and a partnership to build capabilities in that area. And a classic example of this is UPI. UPI was built to solve a government problem of DBT, of transmitting government subsidies to a beneficiary without leakage, without any intermediation, accurately and responsively. And that particular application and that particular problem that has been solved by UPA has spawned one of the fastest growing fintech ecosystems in the world. And that model will continuously be played out as the India stack expands and the India stack becomes more and more intelligent. Broadly, let me tell you the areas that we are focused on to realize this $1 trillion digital economy goal. We want to connect all Indians. That's primarily our goal. I said by 25-26, the government of India intends to deliver the internet to 1.2 billion Indians. The 5G, the BharatNet, the 4G in all the border districts, these are all decisions that have been taken by the government and that are being rolled out and executed. The pace at which the government digitalizes is going to accelerate even further. You have seen the India stack, you have seen how public services have gone online, but you will soon see that that process and that digital government will be taken to the next level of digitalizing, and that in turn will spawn all kinds of other startup ecosystems. I spoke about the digital economy goal, the diversification and expansion of the digital economy pie. Strategic technologies, we are very focused, as I said, on quantum computing, high performance computing, mobility, the India Open Compute, the semiconductors, semiconductor design, microelectronics. The fifth piece of this is global standard cyber laws. We have, as most of you who are observers of the tech space are aware, we have a 22-year-old law called the IT Act that is in a sense regulating the internet. And it is certainly by internet standards and by any other standards and dated law. And that will be soon replaced by a combination of the Digital India Act, the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill, and if required, a legislation for cybersecurity or amendments of the Criminal Penal Code to reflect the cybersecurity challenges. Again, for those who are interested, these laws are guided, these rules are guided by our boundary conditions, our principles of openness, safety and trust, and accountability as the desirable outcomes that the government wants to deliver to our digital nagriks and digital citizens. And the last but not least and most important is talent. It is certainly clear post-COVID that the demand for talent in the tech space, both in India and abroad, is at an all-time high. And that is an area that we are very, very focused on. We have government initiatives, we have public-private partnership initiatives, we are working with the industry. And to give you a specific example, in the semiconductor space where there is such a shortage of talent, the government working with the industry has created a future skills program which will be implemented by 23 April in the higher education and the academic ecosystem in India, which will start churning out VLSI, design engineers, manufacturing engineers, dual degrees, certification, qualifications, diploma skills in a whole spectrum of activities that span the semiconductor sector. And I suspect that that talent will be talent that will be deployed not just in the Indian semiconductor ecosystem, but also the global ones. So talent is a huge issue, a huge challenge, and it is an area that we are absolutely focused on. So these are 6 areas that we are working on to ensure that the Prime Minister's goals of $1 trillion digital economy, our ambitions, are achieved in the coming years. I can certainly say, as I said to a group of students yesterday in Kerala, in a college outside Cochin, that I've spent about 35 years in technology, and depending on the audience, I say it's 30 or 35. If it's a young audience, I say it's 30. If it's an older audience, I say it's 35. So I think it's safe to say I'm 35 years in tech in this audience. But I have never felt more excited about the possibility of India and technology as I do today, strictly as a professional, not as a minister. And I certainly think that this generation of young Indians today who see themselves entering the workforce in a few years, a couple of years, are the most fortunate ones that the independent India's history has ever created. These young Indians have opportunities that nobody has ever had in the last 75 years, certainly not their parents and their grandparents. And it is in no small part due to the efforts of the last 9 years by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government. But it is certainly the most exciting time for those who are in tech, be it an investor, be it a workforce participant, entrepreneur, startup, or indeed from a public policy making point of view. I think to policy make and to oversee, to enable such an exciting, energetic, vibrant ecosystem is an absolute pleasure and a privilege, and I am glad that I was given this opportunity to serve when the Prime Minister did give me this opportunity, and I hope over the coming months and years that we will realize together this dream of $1 trillion digital economy. Thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Hi, good evening, sir. So my name is Rohit and I represent Pinkerton. It's an American company. I take care of their businesses in India. I just wanted to understand if you could add a few lines on where are we on the Data Protection Act. I know the draft was already there. We've read through that. But what is the progress on that? If you can just add a few words on that, please.
So I can't say anything more than that I've said. I think the bill is ready. And as with all things in government, there's a process before it comes to Parliament. And the process is underway.
Hi, sir. I'm Tvesh Mishra. I work for the Economic Times. Sir, do you think it's time that we start defining what should be AI, ML, Internet of Things? Because we see these words being used very casually by companies. So it's time that we have some standards for that.
No, certainly. I think one of the big things that governments around the world have learned is to start having clearer definitions about these things, because I think we will all agree that big tech platforms escaped regulation for many years by constantly talking about innovation, and that innovation should not be regulated. So we certainly will not want to go down that road again and say as long as people use AI and algorithms, that somehow that is an escape from scrutiny or accountability or regulation. In the architecture of the DIA, this is certainly an area that we have kept in mind. And I think you will find that there will be accountability and there will be a certain sense of scrutiny about everything, including references to AI, because everybody today does an if-then statement and then that becomes AI. But I don't see it that way, and certainly I don't think our young Indians who expect to use these solutions and applications see it that way. So we believe user harm is at the heart of DIA. Openness, safety and trust are at the heart of the DIA, Digital India Act. And these are areas that we will certainly address. And on the other hand, I want to also say that we are now the chair of the Global Partnership for Artificial Intelligence. India is a chair. And there is not just a use of AI from a point of view of escaping scrutiny and accountability, but there is also an overreach of AI. There is the whole issue of harm and ethical misuse of AI. So those are all these boundaries that we want to build without really coming in the way of innovation, but certainly not allowing innovation to be a reason to escape scrutiny and accountability.
So I'm from the L&D and the training industry. So my question is that while we are doing a lot to kind of bring out technical trainings for our for the decade, are we also doing something for the people skills and behavioral skills and life skills?
No, look, so I will only address this in the context of the tech space. And this I said early on in 2022 when the big CEOs of the big Indian companies met me, is that I think skilling and capability development is a partnership between government and industry. And nobody should be under the illusion that it's something outsourced to the industry, to the government. So there is a tendency whenever there is a skill shortage to come crying to the government and say, but oh, skills are short, as if there was an MOU between the government and the industry ki humne koi theka le rakha hai. But we are partners, and therefore we say to the industry, if you project out your pipeline of talent requirement, and you project out what capabilities you want to build in your talent, the government will certainly make 50%, 60% of these steps forward in creating a framework, creating the financing for that. Now, if a company A wants a particular set of soft skills or people skills, because they're deploying engineers and deploying talent in a particular country, that is for them to do. That I don't think the government can start doing that type of micromanagement of skills. But we certainly are here to create a framework, platforms, including platforms that allow digital skilling. And indeed, in the tech space, we have invested over 500 crores. The government has actually funded 500 crores or more of capital to enable private sector to skill.
Good evening, sir. My name is Ashutosh Srivastav and I'm in the public relations industry. My question is, we have a huge opportunity in tech, as we all know, and we have a huge workforce and a talented workforce. But there's also a question of an industry academic gap, When freshers come out of college, they are not exactly ready for industry. I have seen it by industry, and I hope that is true for other industries as well. We've seen this skill ministry in the government, and we have heard very good presentation by the Ministry of Railways about fantastic work being done on railways and engineering. Now, why can't we build these case studies into an exposure for these students, so that they can have the exposure to industry learnings while on the go? And maybe some organization who is fifth to it can map this, and this will reduce the gap in industry and academics.
Yeah, so first of all, I don't want to burst your bubble and say it's not a brilliant idea, and it is obviously good idea, but it's neither very outstandingly new. It's an issue that we understand, and what is happening, I'll explain to you, is not that government now starts hard coding and saying what kind of curriculum is employability linked and what kind of curriculum is employable, etc., etc. That is not the job of the higher education ecosystem. The higher education ecosystem is supposed to give high quality education, which we do, and the higher education network does. But what skilling does and what students need to do, and we are creating more and more awareness of this, is that as they do a degree, and by the way, these 42 colleges that I've been to, I almost in every college I evangelize this, that even if you're doing an LLB or you're doing a BA in English or you're doing a BSc in physics, you must during those 4 years or 3 years do some certification programs in skills, some skill. Because degrees give you knowledge, skills give you skills, skill certifications and skill programs give you skills. And the world out there, whether you look at the world through the prism of self-employment and entrepreneurship, or you look at the world through the prism of employment and jobs, today requires skills. So the days when I graduated, and I don't know, maybe you're much younger than me, and maybe even when you graduated, where you just flashed a degree certificate and said, "मुझे नौकरी चाहिए," वो तो चले गया अभी. Degree तो चाहिए ही, लेकिन आपके पास क्या skill है? What skills do you have? You have to be able to say in your job interview or when you introspect building a company. So we have 5,800 skilling programs that range from white collar to blue collar, that range from AI and robotics to plumbing and carpentry sales and service. So it is a question of more and more students understanding that it is as important to do skills and skilling, and that the job market and the workforce requirements have, in the last 5-7 years, globally by the way, have pivoted from degree alone to degree plus skills.
Hi sir. Sir, my name is Varun Bajaj. I am into law and policy in the new economy space. I run a policy think tank exclusively for all the unicorns. They are part of the association. Sir,
I hope you have stock options in it.
Sir, that's my think tank. I'm the president. So, my question is that the vision of the government is that government would never will enable the business but not be in business. But when we talk to all the stakeholders currently, we have seen a UPI success in the fintech space, but there's a counter view which is emerging. That is the government's intent is to control key businesses in the digital economy also. What UPI did to fintech, a lot of fintech startups had to maneuver their business. And I think recently the input which I am getting is clarificatory on similar nature on ONDC, because that's kind of having a framework on goods and services. So if you could just share your vision on these, the government vision, it will really help startups.
So there is no vision as much as there is a statement of fact, and I think we can all agree to this, that in no space do we want domination by a few companies. And there are many segments of the digital economy and in the digital space that are uncomfortably dominated by 1 or 2 or 3 big companies whom we in jest refer to as big tech, or in scorn refer to as big tech, depending on the mood of the day or the day of the... So our government's view is very clearly that we don't want to discourage anybody from being in India. We want all of the companies to come to India, but we certainly don't want the digital economy to be throttled or to be controlled, because like I said, our policy goals are openness. Open is the first boundary condition. Openness means what? Free and fair and unfettered choice for digital nagriks. So if it turns out, what is the genesis of ONDC? It turns out that a lot of merchants, a lot of retailers are uncomfortable about the dominance of the 1 or 2 players that in the e-commerce space. And so the government has to intervene and come up with ONDC. Similarly, payments were dominated by foreign platforms in the past, and you have seen during the Russia-Ukraine war how weaponization of those platforms can be easily done by countries who choose to do so. So we certainly think it's part of our national sovereignty of the digital economy, that we build in resilience, we build in redundancy, we build in the ability to run these platforms in India and have access to these platforms and technologies in India. So that is the background to this, so that you understand.
My name is Anjali Raina. I work at Harvard Business School, but I've been a banker for many years. First, I'd like to compliment you. You've taken a very difficult topic and you've spoken about it really well. What I loved was when you said that degrees give knowledge, but skills are important for employability. The issue is that a certificate is not a socially valued item. A degree is. So parents will pay for the degree, but will not pay for the social certificate, for that certificate of employability. And Deepak Lamba spoke about it very well. He said that the rise and fall of NIIT is based on the rise and fall of how computer technology and industry and skilling came into the academic world. So what can you do as the government through a marketing platform to improve the value of something that gives a person employability, which costs less, which doesn't require so much time? You know, just looking at it as a parent, it's a no-brainer. But how do we change the mindset of people to take skills and certificates and give them the same value?
So, frankly, that is a good question, and we should have a separate session for this, for the 4 hours for this, because it's a worthwhile conversation to have. But in a nutshell, let me try and answer this. First of all, I agree with you that certification is seen as less valuable socially than a degree, which is why the government of India under Prime Minister from day one has made this free. So in a sense, we have encouraged people to take on certification and skilling without having to cross the hurdle of convincing themselves about the economic utility or the economic benefit or the returns for any investment they make in skilling. So point number one. Point number two, the big difference that we have now brought in post-COVID is that the skills that we offer are all designed, developed, and linked to industry needs. So the industry partnership in skilling is become, excuse me, a lot more deeper. In the past, the industry partnership was Mr. X company, broadly what are your views on what skill requirements? So they have a sort of a non-binding casual conversation. I need 4 engineers, I need 10 supervisors, and I need 8 mechanics. And that casual conversation then becomes part of a plan, and then that becomes an expensive skilling proposition. Now it is less casual, and there is a lot more design that goes into what we call the district skill development plan. So there are 741 skill development plans, district skill development plans, and that is broken up into 3 buckets, if you use that phrase. One is local economy linked. So local farm economy linked skills, local non-farm economy linked skills. Second is local industry linked skills. And the third is more migratory skills. So therefore, if you want to go, if you're in Nagpur and you're looking for a job, or you're interested in a job in Delhi or Noida, those type of skills. Now we've added a 4th layer, and the Honorable Prime Minister graciously has announced it in the budget, which is this demand, addressing the demand for cross-border skills. So 30 Skill India International Centers are being set up to prepare young Indians with the skills required by, let us say, Europe, Japan. I was in Kerala yesterday and I met a Skill India center that has sent 1,600 Malayali youth, Kerala youth, to Japan. And the conventional wisdom would be that you've gone, send them to Mitsubishi or Sony or some of the tech companies. But no, they've gone to agriculture farms, they've gone to hatcheries, and they've gone to many areas that are absolutely not obvious and not part of the normal narrative when we talk about skills and jobs. So that is broadly the architecture that we're implementing. And frankly, 6,000 crores the Prime Minister has given in the budget is a 3-year budget. So we hope we will take it far and it will touch a large number of young Indians.